Hey everybody, this is Dennis, and welcome to another episode of the Grounded Reason podcast, where my friend Joel and I sit down and shoot the breeze about cord cutting, issues around internet, privacy, it seems, the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But today, we're going to take a bit of a break, and I'm going to try not to mention any of that stuff.
Setting down the policy, wonk hat.
Right. And today, we're going to be talking about cord cutting, and actually we're going to pretty much be talking about the war on Kodi, which has seemed to
heat up.
In the UK. It's insane right now. I mean, they're going after everybody. But before we talk about that, we did get a question over email, and if you have a question for us, email address is at podcast@groundedreason.com. And Joe wrote in, and he is ready to start his journey into being a cord cutter. He's got the whole antenna thing worked out. He's got a smart TV, and he wants to know if he needs an Android box. Now, if you have a smart TV and it has the services you want, then no. Of course, I mean, there's no reason to go out and buy something you don't need.
Why pay extra? But
I will say that if you have neither, I would go with a device. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be an Android box, like he asked Android box. I prefer Roku, honestly, especially for people who are. And when I say prefer Roku, I really mean that for probably like the everyday person.
Yeah. Like, take me, for example. I love my Roku 4.
They're so easy to use.
Set it and forget it,
right.
Man. It's like that infomercial with the guy who had the spinning grill. You set it and forget it. Do you remember that guy?
The spinning grill? I don't know this guy.
It's this grill that, like...
I only know George Foreman. I don't know.
Oh, you're killing me.
I don't know.
You savage. Anyways, I digress.
Okay.
Back to...
So he... now these people probably want to hear about the grill.
No?
No.
You ruined it with the Foreman grill.
I'm sorry, everyone. So if you are new to this and you're just kind of figuring it all out, then I would go with one of your standard Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TVs, because they're built for user friendliness. Android boxes, it's not like they're difficult to use, but the level of tinkering that one can do with an Android box is much higher than those other three devices I mentioned.
What it reminds me of is back in the day, even in the early 2000s, people used to really take their PCs and peel them back and do all sorts of stuff with them.
Right.
And Macs were really for people that just wanted a computer that would allow them to do very nice, relatively sophisticated graphical design, etc. Yep. But it was a plug and play device as opposed to the Windows ones where you really wanted to play and configure with them.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very much like that. So when it comes to, the choice, if you don't have a smart TV, then go get, a device. Otherwise, if you're happy with what you have, there's really no reason to buy anything else. I mean, while there are smart TVs that allow you to actually install apps like the Roku TV, like the Roku smart TVs, where you can actually put like apps on it. Some of these come pretty much stock with, these are the apps that come on it, and that's all you can add from like a small set of applications that, they've kind of approved for that TV. Now, when it comes down to it, I'm a big fan of, a company that concentrates all their time and energy on a streaming device is going to have a good streaming device. A company that concentrates all their time and energy on TVs and decides to add streaming functionality, odds are it's probably not going to be good. That's really, when it comes to a smart TV, the ones I trust most are the ones that just go and stick Roku OS on their TV and use that. Roku TVs.
It's the general, it's the generic argument of specialist versus generalist.
No, I'm not poo-pooing all. If you have a smart TV, I have a smart TV, but I bought it because it was the TV I wanted, it just so happened to be smart, and it really wasn't much more expensive than a non-smart TV. I mean, I think it's hard to find like non-smart TVs anymore when you go into a Best Buy or what have you.
I was going to say specifically, like, to Joe's question, it really comes down to if Joe has all of the apps that he needs already on the smart TV itself.
Right.
There's no need to get a device. And if not, and the smart TV doesn't allow him to add those apps, well, then, yeah, you probably do need to get a device.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to that.
Simple.
And I mean, that's if you have it. And if you're new to this, then I'd go device over smart TV in general.
Yeah. If you hadn't already purchased the item, which Joe clearly has.
Right. So I'd say, Joe, stick with it if it works for you. Now, he did say Android box. Now, and this kind of really gets into what we're going to talk about a bit today.
Right.
Because I wrote that article on, how jailbroken Amazon Fire TVs really aren't a thing.
Right.
Right. And I mean, we actually did a solo episode, I think, on that one. You weren't here for this one.
No.
For that, right?
I don't think so.
So hey, maybe we can talk about a little bit about that today then.
Sure.
But basically what people are doing is they're getting these Amazon Fire TV sticks and they're putting Kodi on it, and they're selling it on like eBay and Amazon for a markup.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not just Fire sticks. It's just Fire sticks just so happen to be so cheap. And they're also taking like, white labeled Android boxes and, sticking a Kodi installation on it.
Right.
And we did this we actually, like our sixth episode way back, we did a whole episode on Kodi and how Kodi is great.
Yeah.
Because really what Kodi is it's like it's a media center, and it's a way to aggregate all your content.
Which is awesome.
It is. And the cool thing about it is not only is it like, if you have, say, like a network attached storage, or even like, a few external hard drives or a few computers with a ton of movies on them, you can point all those various sources. You can point Kodi at all those various sources, and it'll bring them in, to one interface. And it'll also do like web based directories.
Yeah.
And that's where kind of Kodi, it's not Kodi that gets themselves into trouble, but that's where Kodi gets taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Because what people will do is they'll write these plugins, and there's legitimate plugins too. If you go to Kodi's website, and I'll put it in the show notes, there's a whole like page of approved Kodi plugins, which will, provide access to various apps out there. Like, if you wanted to watch an app like Netflix or like HBO and stuff, there's like, I'd have to look to see if those are actually, made, but they're like that, Crackle, what have you. Somebody will code a plugin that you can pop into Kodi, and then you can go ahead and you can, watch it. But you're logging in with your credentials. Still, it's just, it still brings it into that one interface with all your other content. Well, there's the plugin that everyone was going crazy about was called Genesis. But Genesis is actually gone, and cleverly enough, the next iteration is called Exodus.
Yeah.
And what Exodus does is
it'll be Leviticus and
right, yeah,
right, got it.
Corinthians 2.
Yep, I'm following. John 3:16.
So so what they've done is they've taken this plugin, and it'll go out on the web, and it'll scrape for content.
Yep.
And like torrents, what have you, whatever's out there, and it'll bring it all in. So people will advertise. They'll take this Android box, and they'll pop Kodi on it, and then they'll put Exodus is the popular one. There's other ones too, and they'll sell it to people, and they'll, it'll be a website you'll see, or like an eBay description, big letters. Watch all your movies and TV for free. No reason to pay for cable. Cut the cord. Blah blah blah. And then in real tiny print, it basically kind of explains that they're not liable for any blah blah blah. All these legalese.
There's a reason why they put that disclaimer.
Right. Exactly. Because it's illegal. I mean, I mean, it's illegal in the UK and in many places. I think Canada is actually tossing. In the US, it's not specifically
No.
illegal, but it's not legal either.
No.
And we talked about this in the Kodi episode. It's a gray area within the law.
Yeah, it hasn't been addressed specifically by Congress yet, and it hasn't been decided in the courts.
Right.
And, those are basically our two methods. And I think the general consensus out of our previous Kodi discussion is if you're using one of those services and it has that type of content, I wouldn't want to be the test case, right?
Right.
Because
the law,
you might get in real trouble.
Right. Because if these companies start losing enough money, these content producers, the law is going to be brought in. And
it's going to be on their side. Bottom line.
But yeah, it's going to be. I cannot see a world.
They own the content. They own the rights.
They own the content. Because, I mean, there's really not. I don't think there's a lot of legal standing for people to just grab that stuff and use it for free, and then the producer of that content not be compensated in some way.
So we've talked about this in previous episodes. I'm, and so are you, a big horror fan, right? I go to Netflix, and I'm drawing it's coming around. This loop, it's looping back.
All right, we're going on a journey, topic. Everyone. Buckle
so I'm
in.
going to walk you there.
We're walking.
Yeah, we're walking. Okay, we're jogging. So I'm a big horror fan, and I love Netflix. So I go to Netflix, and I'm like, why am I seeing the same, 200 titles or whatever over and over again? Like, do they ever get anything new? And that's like my irrational part of my brain.
Right. You need Shudder.
Question. Yeah, there you go. I do. I do, really. I've thought about it. But like, then the logical part of my brain kicks in, and it's the answer. The actual answer is they're in negotiations for the content.
Right.
And so Netflix, let's just use them as our example for everything we're talking about here with these add-ons to Kodi, right? Netflix is not going through that very expensive negotiation and all of those fees they have to pay, and then going to turn a blind eye to people just flouting that.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
See, I told you. I got us back.
Yeah, we got us back. Yeah, we're there. Yeah, that wasn't a long jog at all.
Well, it could have been.
So what's going to happen? And I mean, we've been pretty good about, not to toot our own horns too much, but painting a good picture of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like the privacy stuff. We and actually put this out on Twitter. I swore I wasn't going to talk about it, but we were talking. We pretty much called out what was going to happen before the inauguration.
Some of this stuff you can see coming,
right? And I'm saying I got that kind of confidence with this, and I'm going to say eventually at some point a judge is going to rule that
it's inevitable.
Yeah, that these devices, or not Kodi. Kodi's okay, but misusing Kodi to go and watch pirated content is no bueno, and they are going to make an example out of a bunch of folks.
And one caveat to that. So you just called out one possible scenario for that being resolved. The other possible scenario, and this is actually, I hate to bring this up since we said we weren't going to talk about it very much, but we just talked about how the privacy rules were knocked down by Congress. And what Dennis and I were saying is that we expected that to, previously to had been knocked down. We expected that to be knocked down by the FCC.
Mm-hmm.
And it just went the other way. It still got knocked down.
Same result,
right?
Yeah.
Same
means.
Result, different means. So my caveat is it's entirely possible that you're correct, that a judge comes to that conclusion.
Right.
It's also possible that Congress
that they just go ahead and
puts
they just
a law in, and that's that.
That's scarier.
Yeah.
Because when Congress, there's always
it's
unintended,
a bigger, broader brush.
Yes, and there's always unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Like if a judge interprets the law,
it tends to be narrow.
Very narrow. I mean, it's actually, that's like, good jurisprudence. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know. You said that right.
Right. So, I mean, it's that they're,
That's what they're supposed to do.
Trained isn't the right word, but in, wherever you go to, like, when you go to judge school,
I think they call that law school, but whatever.
When you go to, like, DeVry, and
most of the judges that would make these decisions didn't go to DeVry.
well, no, like the
not to be a snob about
the
it.
judge, the judge track.
Yeah.
You just
go
exactly.
In. I'd like to sign up for the judge track.
2-year judge program, right? That,
yeah.
That's it.
It's a 2-year degree for judgeship. Yeah.
But they teach them to apply the law a narrow approach to the law, and to make decisions that are really going to.
In general, that's how it's done.
Right. But we're in Congress, they write about, they try to write 100 pages of nonsense that.
Congress is a bunch of yokels trying to act like they're lawyers.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
Those are the guys that went through the 2-year,
Yeah. They went
to the
2-year
congressman track.
So that's the only caveat. Like, I think you're right. It's an inevitable conclusion. This will be decided, and it will go in the favor of the property right owners.
Yeah.
Like, that's what will happen. It's just which way will it be decided? I don't know.
Right. So Kodi, when they have been kind of after these folks for a while.
Yeah, they made a very public statement that they are trying to do it because it's besmirching their name.
Right. And now, actually, like, when you go to their download page, to download Kodi, there's a big statement there about.
Yeah, they warn you.
Yeah, about how this is there is no Kodi provides no content in of itself.
Yeah. If you get an app that's an add-on to Kodi, and you're just logged into Hulu all of a sudden, or logged into Netflix,
or you're like watching Jurassic World in like 5 seconds, and like
something's wrong,
right?
Like set down the remote and maybe uninstall that application,
right.
Or I guess you would have to hold on to the remote in that case. But never mind, you get the point,
right? So what's happening is. Not only is Kodi after them now, but now a major retailer, Amazon, just decided and put it into their policy for if you're a seller on Amazon and you're selling Android boxes, that they didn't call out Kodi specifically, but everyone knows what we're talking about here.
Means,
and they're saying anyone who puts software on their Android device and sells it that allows viewing of illegal content is going to get just straight up banned from Amazon.
Well, in
the UK and in the US.
Well, and the reason for that is depending on how things shake out, either in the courts or in Congress, Amazon doesn't want to take on that legal liability. They don't know where they would fall in that, right? Because they're the distributor of it, right? Like, yeah, sure. If I set up an Amazon store and I'm selling these things, right?
Yep. And that's what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, and it's exactly what they're doing. And the law comes and cracks down on me. That's obvious. But Amazon set up the storefront. They saw the transactions, right? They helped process the payments. I mean, depending on how the law is written, they're on the hook too.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make a very clear statement about
and
it.
like everybody and their like brother right now seems to be getting one of these. Well, a lot of people are getting like I said, a Fire Stick, and they're installing Kodi. It's called side loading.
Yeah.
They're side loading Kodi, and then they're putting on Exodus. Now, they're calling that jailbreaking for some
they're
odd
misappropriating
reason.
the term.
Right. And I get into I'm getting into battles with people. They're like, it's called jailbreaking. And I was like, no, jailbreaking is when you actually have to modify the permissions on the device to get yourself some type of privilege that wasn't the distributor's intent. And then you go ahead and modify it and add stuff to it. Like when common example, used to be able to jailbreak an iPhone.
Yeah.
And, you could go ahead and install things on it that wasn't,
We're not intended to be installed.
Or tested or originally approved or whatever. Yeah. But to do it on an Amazon Fire TV stick, you literally go into the settings.
It's intended to be.
Well, yeah, you go into settings and you just say, let me install apps from unknown sources. It's a checkbox.
Yeah.
So it's native. It's not like you're going in.
It really comes down to the intent of the manufacturer.
Right. And then then you go ahead and you can install like the binary file to put Kodi on.
Well, in case you guys out there are new to the podcast, Dennis and I are petty when it comes to semantics because we have started a campaign, and I know the Christopher is out there.
Oh yeah,
we've started a campaign against all marketers who do things like add the word stick or go or now.
Now gets me the worst. I mean, that's the worst one because it's just like I'm watching all of it now. I mean, it's not like if I turn on the television, it's now. Like what? I don't even understand what that even means. That the streaming now. It's like what? Am I going to watch it in the future? What the hell are we talking about here?
My pet peeve is stick, right? Like sticks are made of wood. I'm not a smart man, but I know that part, right? And again, if you're new, when we refer to the Christopher, it is a gentleman who has been, active in the community, and his name is Christopher, and we decided to refer to him as the Christopher.
He's our field general on this.
Yeah, he really is. He really is. He's leading the campaign. One-man army.
But I mean, jailbreaking, it's so misused. And the part that's really, really the worst is it's people who are doing something that literally is clicking a button and installing a piece of software. And then they're calling it jailbreaking to give people the impression that it's difficult to do.
Well, it also gives, we talked about that or this before. It gives them the ability to do a markup.
Mm-hmm.
And like in most, it's not exactly true. In many sectors, right? Terminology is managed under regulations like consumer protection regulation and things like that.
Right.
To where if you say, let's say diet, it has to mean a certain thing, right? Or whatever else, right? And if it doesn't, right, there's like a punitive measure.
That's the one thing the FTC can do to you. If you misrepresent, like if you tell a customer something.
Literally what they,
that's like their main power is if you tell a customer one thing and then do another or don't do what you said, then you can.
Of course, this wouldn't fall under the jurisdiction of the FTC though, because it's not infrastructure.
No, and it's,
Just saying. Just saying.
So listen to last episode.
Yeah, exactly. You see previous episode. But where I was going is basically like, but the term jail, jailbreak, right? Like, or jailbroken, depending on
whatever
verb noun agreement. Like that's right.
Yeah.
I'm a dork.
That's right. We're going on.
But
you went to your 2 years of judge school.
I did, right? But like that term is not protected in any manner. So what that means is someone can say it and it doesn't mean anything.
No,
right?
And that's a lot of the people selling. It's not like they're like reputable companies or anything.
No.
It's some Cheeto laden like.
It's Joel Inc.
Basement dweller.
Hey. I resemble that remark.
Throwing Kodi and Exodus on some Fire Sticks and then selling them for $70 a pop.
And,
to some poor unsuspecting person that just wants to steal cable.
Right.
I mean, no.
And
honestly, they don't even know half the time.
Of course they don't.
Because they pitch it as it's. And I get the psychology of it. If you pay for something, you figure
they paid someone.
Right. You're like, and that's like a common like behavioral economics. If somebody pays for something, then they're like there's no guilt or.
Of course not.
A good example about this is, and I can't quote who did the study, but you know when you got kids in daycare,
Yeah.
and if you are late, there's typically some type of penalty.
Yep.
Okay. Well, when they first tried this out, they decided that said, well, what would be a fair amount? And they basically divided, what the hours would be anyway, and then just tacked it on. So you would logically think that, because they put this in place because they're having a problem. People were showing up late. So you figure, okay, they're going to put money, they're going to, put some type of monetary penalty in.
Yep.
And you would think that worst case scenario is it stays the same and doesn't improve, or it probably gets better because you're charging people more money.
Yeah.
Opposite effect. It increased. The people who were late went up.
Well, it's because they believe they're paying for it.
Exactly.
So it's just like paying for a previous hour.
Right, because the previous, it's the negative incentive is guilt.
Yeah.
That guilt is there. And people, they feel guilty that they're leaving their kid there where they're supposed to pick them up. Once they pay, the guilt goes away.
Yeah.
So if you could pay, then they do. And it wasn't actually until they tripled what that hourly rate would be
then
to where it was
a
punitive fine to where it started to go down. Even doubling it was still not improving anything because they were the people would work out the value and say, oh, okay, that's reasonable.
That's all right, yeah.
Now, to bring this back to the topic at hand, if someone goes and hands money over, then there's less apt to do the soul searching to sit there and say, is something fishy going on here? No, they paid money and they feel as though their conscience is clean.
Yeah. And that's what's happening in the UK.
Right. And to take us back to in the UK, they are going, the government, they made it illegal. It's in the UK, it is technically illegal to watch this stuff. Now, they're not going after the viewers as much as they are the distributors, but one dude got popped for £250,000.
And that works out to about $310,000.
That's exactly what that works out to right now. It's $310,000.
And just for the record, I have a problem. I watch exchange rates. I can't help myself.
Right. So, but I mean, and the fine. I mean, I think the fine is £10,000 per device.
That's insane. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or whatever, but that's a lot of money.
That is a lot. That is the daycare punishment right there. That is like the that's
you
the
discourage
fine.
activity with a fine like that.
So, that's like when I was in Canada. I saw a sign that is there's and people up in the Great White North listening can back me up here. There are signs on the highway to where if you're going. It's in kilometers, so I had to do the math in my head. But it is the equivalent of if you were doing 90 miles per hour on the highway. It's a $10,000 fine.
Right.
It's a $10,000 ticket.
Guess what? I ain't going 90.
Right. And that's kind of what they're doing here is in the UK is they're charging per device 10 grand. So you did 10,000 pounds. So what would that be? I guess he sold 25 devices. That's it. So that's probably
going to eat into your profit margin.
He's going to eat into your profit. But somebody who sells that's an eBay dealer. That's an eBay dealer right there. Yeah. That's just like some
some schlub who's selling stuff. I mean, like we've all done it, right? Like that's just some person
sold on eBay.
Yeah. Not sold
illegal
content. Where it is expressly illegal in the nation state you're in.
Right.
No, we haven't all done that.
No.
You're right.
Right.
But we have all sold on eBay something, right? And so this isn't like a bigwig. This is just a person.
No, and he got popped. So I'm waiting. And okay, so Cody's going after folks here. I don't think it's going to be too long, especially with what you see now in the pro. I mean, the pro. This is one thing I definitely agree with. I think it should be illegal. I don't agree with a $10,000 or that 10,000
No.
pound. That's a little extreme. And let me explain my reasoning here, because I know there's people listening right now and be like, well, what do you mean? It's movie stars and it's, fat cat directors and who had movie houses making this stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago when I said this. If somebody hasn't listened to the previous Kodi episode,
Yeah, go for it, man.
Then, yes, those people exist, but the people who really get hurt, like if the TV and movie industry started losing cash, the people who get hurt are the grips or people who are doing wardrobe, like people who are making like middle class livings, the drivers who are driving people around, the guys doing craft services.
The thing that will get cut, right? Like, so I'm not going to pick on I will pick on Mr. Tom Cruise just to have a name.
Oh, he's
right?
fun. He's fun to pick on.
Yeah, don't worry, Tom Cruise is just fine.
I think he.
Yeah. I don't think
he'll be okay. So, he'll be fine.
His check.
He might. I mean, a day or two, he might feel bad after you say this, but he'll be okay.
Yeah, but his check is not getting affected by this.
No,
because his agent's going to get Tom his money.
Right.
But what they might do is dial back craft services, which means, hey, you know what? The company that was providing those services is hiring fewer drivers and fewer people making the food and so on. That isn't like, again, that's not a movie star. That's just a dude who's making stuff.
Yeah,
right.
And it's like and also like what that does for like a town too, like because those are the people who are just directly working for the production. But when I was living in Baltimore and The Wire was being filmed,
it was a big deal.
That was like an industry. I mean, like,
of course,
where they were filming was like, because you had this huge group of folks coming in to make a big project.
All those people got to buy lunch.
Exactly. All the businesses around there, they shop. It brings in people. It brings in tourism too, because people want to come down to where they're filming and they want to watch.
I was in New York back in the day, and I was one of my buddies, his cousin, we went to go visit in the, like in Manhattan, and I want to say it was like NYPD Blue or something like that was filmed there. It was the same thing, right? Like everybody knew exactly what block it was shot on or whatever. And I forget the show, but I think that's what it was. And, there was a lot of money being made, and that whole community takes a punch right in the pocketbook.
Right. So that's really what, like, where my kind of ethics come down on this. And that's why I don't pirate stuff, is because, people work hard to make this stuff.
So my decision-making process is slightly different. Mine is basically, I don't want to go to prison.
Well, yes, yeah.
Right? Like, and so
that's the other thing too.
I don't want to lose a whole lot of money.
And I know someone's sitting here screaming into a jar saying, no, it's not illegal. It's not illegal.
But again,
someone's going to get an example made out of them.
But like, it wasn't, fine. It was illegal in the UK when this gentleman was doing it. But it wasn't considered like a big deal, right? They had not really pushed it, and then all of a sudden they did.
Yeah.
And my point is, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person who gets it pushed on just because I want to watch Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, way back.
Like I like that show, but I don't like it enough.
No.
To spend $310,000.
Yeah, way back. Stealing probably wasn't illegal at some point.
Sure.
But then the first person who did it and got caught and enough people didn't like it got his hands cut off. So, do you want to be that first person?
Yeah, I think I've already answered that question.
Right, and that's my point too. It's like
I don't want to be that person.
No, at some point the law is going to come down and say this is not kosher.
Well, and
someone's going to get hit with a big fat penalty to make an example out of them.
You have to think of it as, well, all right, I have to think of it as this, because this is how my brain works, is the evolution of a market, right? Like when streaming services first came out, there wasn't a lot of money in it,
No,
right?
no.
There's very, very little money in it. And, things kind of chugged along and no one cared. No one cared either way.
Right.
Right. And then, money started to get made. People started to pay attention. And then all of a sudden people started saying, well, maybe we'll make native content. And then you get your House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. And, now you're all the way up to where you got Disney putting 4 or 5, I don't know what it is, but Marvel products out there. They're all native to Netflix, right? Like now you're talking big money.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's still, even then, because on Kodi, it's not just streaming services that you're getting paid.
No, not at all. You're talking major motion pictures as well.
Well, they're doing that, and it's pretty much every TV show, because what they'll do
people
is
torrent anything under the sun.
Right. So it's pretty much anything. And here we are, is like, okay, and that's called, people are home right now, and that's called Exodus. Yeah.
So I can get all this
months of
stuff
for free. You did that VPN episode. I go better go listen to that.
Yeah. Well, and as we said in the VPN episode, if you roll in those dice, you might want to be under a blanket, right? That's all it comes down.
Right.
You might want to hide yourself.
Hey, look. I want all the listeners that we have to stay listeners. I don't want them in jail. So if you're going to do this stuff, get yourself a VPN.
Yeah. Stay safe, fellas, and ladies, because I ain't the cops. You do what you got to do, but I don't advise it.
No, I don't think it's good for you. I think that it'll get you into trouble at some point. And I don't want to see that. So really, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not trying to preach from some moral high ground here. No. I just don't want anyone to get in trouble.
I do lots of things that I probably shouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't want to walk that tightrope. That's all.
Well, no, because you're talking big money is the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't realize, is they just look at it as like a movie or whatever. But there's a lot of greenbacks behind that content, and
that means the penalty is going to be big.
Exactly, and that also means that, as we can see, these people own a lot of lawmakers.
Yeah, that's all I'm. Well, if you refer back to the previous episode, we talked a lot about industry capture of in our case, in the United States, we're talking Congress, right? Mm-hmm. Presumably in the UK, we're talking Parliament, right? And so on. But industries, they got deep pockets. They work the lawmakers. Everybody knows that's the score. And so, don't think that the big movie makers and, streaming services, etc., are gonna sit idly by. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And okay, Amazon, being the big player they are, they're feeling the heat on this, because here's the language that they put under their streaming media players. It says, quote, products offered for sale on Amazon should not promote, suggest the facilitation of, or actively enable the infringement of or unauthorized access to digital media or other protected content. Any streaming media player or other device that violates this policy is prohibited for sale on Amazon. It is your responsibility to source and sell products that do not promote, promise the facilitation of, or actively enable the infringement of or unauthorized access to digital media or other protected content. If you sell these products, we may immediately suspend or terminate your selling privileges and destroy inventory in our fulfillment centers without reimbursement. In addition, if we determine that your account has been used to engage in fraud or other illegal activity, remittances and payments may be withheld or forfeited.
Yeah.
So that's a no joke. They're we will burn your stuff.
We will burn your stuff, and any money we're holding in process, we're going to keep.
Right.
And you know what? If I had a little business, I might say, hey, maybe I'm going to change my inventory. Maybe I'm going to sell a different thing.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing
that's
is,
what that's meant to do.
Even the facilitation of. You can't even sell an Android. By that language, you could not sell an Android box with Kodi on it, complete legit, and then say, you could put Exodus on this and watch movies for free.
Yeah,
if you did that,
don't you do it.
They're burning all your stuff.
Yeah, and they're keeping all your money.
Right.
And you know what? That is a very carefully crafted statement.
Oh, yes.
Like I don't hear a lot of wiggle room in that statement.
No, there is no
personally.
wiggle room there.
And would that or will that keep Amazon from getting drugged through the mud when this thing finally comes down?
Yeah. Well, I think
But probably not in the press, but probably in the courts.
Yeah, I think what's happening right now is you have a bunch of people pulling all their inventory off Amazon and they're heading over to eBay. So stay tuned.
Oh, eBay's going to do the same thing.
Yeah. I can't see them not.
I'm sorry I spoiled. That was spoiler alert. eBay's going to do the same thing. And then Craigslist. All right. Next.
Well, Craigslist is like the Wild West.
Yeah, Craigslist.
Yeah,
they don't care.
No.
There's some stuff on Craigslist.
Yeah, you could get like a human hand on Craigslist if you want it.
Craigslist is the international waters of the internet. It really is.
It's the Donald.
It is. It is. It is like you've gone 3 threads down on Reddit.
Right. Yeah, you're
Like,
into some
like,
stuff.
Whoa.
You're into like
We can say words like that here?
You're in the
Right,
rule,
like a-
what's that, rule 34
Yeah,
of the internet right there.
You don't want to be there. That's the place you walk in that door and you walk right back out.
Right. So we've gotten into, we talked about what's going on in the UK, and the reason this kind of plays into an argument that a lot of people I talk to like to use. In the UK, while it's not technically illegal to watch pirated content, it's illegal to distribute it.
Right.
And it all comes down to storage. The law that the way they look at it over there is if you're streaming it, it's a temporary copy because you're not actually saving it.
Okay.
Which, being in tech,
Yeah, I would quibble with that.
I have a huge quibble with it because you're caching it locally.
Right.
Like when
You're consuming it, period.
the way those devices work, while you're not saving it forever, if you have like a streaming device or even your phone, there's memory. There's solid state memory on the disk that's going to have to save that copy while you watch it with your eyeballs.
Yeah.
It's not like it's, being poured out of a faucet into your face. I mean, there's like, there's got to be like, there's some caching that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Or else, it
It
needs to adjust the bit rate and everything else.
It would be too chatty back and forth on the network
exactly
to call it.
So people that use that argument, like they might have like, legislature fooled, because I've heard that actually like mannered about like the difference between streaming and then actually saving it on disk. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like I get it. The idea of streaming is it's disposable. It's like you're not going to keep it, but you can't really come down on the technicality of it's not stored, because it is stored. It's just not stored in the fashion where you're used to seeing long-term things stored.
Sure. I mean, I guess where I look at it is kind of what it seems like the UK legislature has done, or what it seems like they've done, is tried to draw a distinction between like cardinal sins and venial sins.
Right.
Like they're going, okay, for you people that are doing like you're watching, it's actually a lot like we treat marijuana in this country, where it's like if you're using things for it's decriminalization. If we're using things for private consumption, whatever, we're not that worried about you. We'll turn a bit of a blind eye. Right. But if you're distributing, that's your ass.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, see, I think the way they do it is in the U, because in the US we tend to go after, I don't know why, the market.
Yeah.
Not the distributor.
Yeah. It's just
that. I mean, if you look at numerous examples, immigration.
Yeah.
They'll go and they'll bust a business to and then, you know, bust all the illegal immigrants who are working there. But
slap a marginal
fine. But if you really care about that problem, like if you consider that a problem, then you should be going after the people hiring folks.
Yeah.
That really what nips it in the bud. It's the same way with drug. You can bust drug users all year long and, you know, fill prisons with them. You're never going to address the real problem, which is, you know, the distribution of it. And that's really what they're doing over there in the UK. Is they're going after the people selling the devices and not the people who are, you know, consuming the information. And my fear is in the United States, you know, since it's such a business friendly climate, that they're probably they're going to be going after the consumers of video and not the not the people selling this stuff.
Our tradition here is very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like our tradition, and it's not like carved into law or anything, but our tradition is to prosecute the people that are consuming rather than those that are producing.
Right.
It's just the nature of our system. So it goes back to what, you know, I mentioned earlier, where if you were going to consume any of these services that you think are iffy, I'd be real careful.
Right. So to kind of like recap a bit, because there's probably people out there who are wondering, all right, so if I get Kodi, what's okay, what isn't? Like, what to look out? What should you look out for?
Well, the easy distinction, right? Like Kodi itself is fine.
Yeah, you can go ahead and and that's why, like, when I wrote the article on the Fire Stick and on Kodi, all I explained was how to install Kodi and not how to install all of these plugins. That because Kodi's open source, which means it's available for anyone to like view the code and write their own plugin and add-ons to Kodi. So people will go and you could write something that just goes around the internet and looks for illegal torrents and provide access through Kodi. And people do that. But if you just install Kodi,
you should be just fine.
Yeah. And really keep in mind, Kodi does not give you any content.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So let me play the proverbial, or, well, in my case, actual dumb guy on this show, right? So one, Kodi's just fine in and of itself. Right? I'm just going to try and sum up at a really high level. Kodi's just fine in and of itself. If you are, this is your second rule, right? Like, so first rule, Kodi just fine.
Kodi good.
Second, Kodi good. Second rule, if you are not providing credentials to view content and you're not watching commercials.
Yes, because because you're either going to be paying by watching ads or you're going to be paying with
money,
George Washington.
Right. Then you're probably doing something you shouldn't be. Right? You're probably putting yourself in jeopardy. And that's all I mean, and I think it's that simple. Like it really is, like, does it pass the sniff test? And if it doesn't, right, like, you're probably not okay.
Right. And if you don't care, use a VPN.
Yeah. Well, and actually, that's a really good point.
Use a VPN anyway, because see last episode.
And let me back up for 1 second just to be clear on that second point. Like, so fine, if you provide your credentials and you pay with actual Benjamins, or, well, in this case, probably, you know, Lincolns, for whatever service or, well, you know, device, make sure that when you're looking at the content itself, that money isn't going to the person who just owns the mom and pop Amazon store or whatever.
Yes.
Right? Like, the money needs to go to who you think reasonably owns those rights to the content.
Right. Well, I mean, and everything's going to be on a subscription basis.
Yeah.
You're not going to have like free content for life.
Yeah, it's really obvious. And that's why I think it's easier when you're talking about streaming services.
Right.
When you're talking about streaming services, if you are not logging in to Netflix, and they're just the easy one to use, but if you're not logging into Netflix with your own credentials, that's it. Right? Like you're gobbling up content in a way you probably shouldn't be. When you're talking about viewing some, I don't know, library of movies that are set out there somewhere randomly on the internet, you probably already know what you're doing.
It's like these Android boxes are so ridiculous. It's like not only are you getting like first run movies, but you're like straight, like it's not like you don't even need to wait. Here, I'm almost selling people in Android boxes. You don't even need to wait for like something to hit DVD. It's like these Android boxes. It's like you can watch Ghost in the Shell,
right?
like which just came out last weekend.
Yeah, and
or like 2 weekends ago.
Wow,
and
that sounds, Dennis. That sounds almost too good to be true.
Yeah,
because guess what?
It is because it's not. It's
you can't.
No,
not legally.
Not legally.
Right? Like, did you go to a movie theater?
No.
Then you didn't do it legally.
Right. So, because like I had a friend who's like, we got to watch Moana, and it came out like a week ago with this stuff. I was like, that's like severely illegal, and they're like, no, it's not. I paid for this box, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like,
well, all it is the equivalent of back in the day when you used to get cable. That like someone spliced for you, and
right. I know a guy. He's got these devices.
I got the hookup.
You just screw it into the cable. And
and like everybody knew, wink, wink, nod, nod, what was going on. You just didn't say it. That's all it is, right? It's just a modern version of that.
Yeah, so it'll always exist,
of course.
So
just. If you're gonna do stuff like that, be careful.
Yeah, I mean, and if you have any questions about any of this stuff, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at Grounded Reason. Send us an email.
Facebook.
I'll put the Facebook page in the show notes.
Buy a T-shirt.
They're lovely.
Yeah,
they feel really nice,
and they protect you from prosecution.
And not just any T-shirt.
Wait, no, they don't actually.
No, they don't.
I take that back. They don't.
Not a Grounded Reason T-shirt.
Oh yeah, yeah. Not buy a T-shirt.
Right,
yeah,
not any old T-shirt. But no, that would be great though if we could get like some type of like protection.
Yeah, force field.
Yeah, like a ward of legal penalties +5.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Wow. D&D references.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yikes.
All right. On that note, then, I'm Dennis Rostaro,
and this is Joel Reeves.
And roll your D20s, folks.
There you go. Take care, everyone.